I was muted. Hey everyone, this is Rachel Gamble with Macon Bibb County Public Affairs. We are now live streaming on Facebook, and we will very shortly be streaming live at maconbib.us. If you are watching this on Facebook right now, you can let people who don't have Facebook know that they can view this meeting at maconbib.us. We will be getting started at 3 p.m. with a public hearing regarding the discrimination ordinance. And then following that at 4 o'clock, we will have a public hearing on the naming of the city auditorium. I'm sending the embed code right now, by the way. And then at 5 o'clock, we have our pre-commission meeting. And at 6 o'clock, we have our full commission meeting. So we'll be getting started here in about 12 minutes. If you are in the meeting, just be aware that we are streaming live currently to our Facebook page, facebook.com/MaconBibb and we will be up live shortly at maconbib.us. Thank you.
Bathroom one more time.
Rachel, can you take down the graphic for just a second? Thank you. Okay, you can put it back up. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello again to anyone watching on Facebook or at maconbib.us. This is Rachel Gamble with Macon Bibb County Public Affairs. We're about to start streaming live in about 10 minutes. Well, we're already streaming live. We'll be starting our first public hearing at 3 o'clock, and that is on the discrimination ordinance, followed at 4 o'clock by the resolution to rename the city auditorium after former Mayor C. Jack Ellis. And then at 5 o'clock, we have our pre-commission meeting, and 6 o'clock is the full commission meeting where they actually do the votes. So we're just getting set up now, getting everything streaming live, and we'll get started in about 10 minutes. Thanks. Hey everyone, this is Rachel Gamble with Macon Bibb Public Affairs again. We've got about 5 minutes till 3. Our schedule today is as follows. At 3 o'clock, we have a public hearing regarding a discrimination ordinance. At 4 o'clock, we have a public hearing regarding renaming the city auditorium. At 5 o'clock is our pre-commission meeting. And at 6 o'clock is the full commission meeting where they take the votes. We are streaming live on Facebook right now, facebook.com/MaconBibbCounty. And you can let those who don't use Facebook know they can view live at maconbib.us. It will also be there. Hey everyone, this is Rachel Gamble again with Macon Bibb County Public Affairs. We are checking our audio right now, making sure we're good to go ahead of the public hearings and commission meetings. If y'all will bear with us for a few minutes, we're still getting things set up. We should be starting right at 3 or just a minute after. Thank you.
Just want to say hello.
Hey, dude, were you sitting over there? Oh, I couldn't see you sitting over there. All right, okay. My dear. Thank you, dear. Am I set up? You are. Oh, I
Hey
see.
everyone in the Zoom meeting, commissioners, and everyone else in the Zoom meeting. This is Rachel
not
with
hearing
Public
anything.
Affairs. We are getting everyone set up here for the public hearings. If you're watching on Facebook, let people who don't have Facebook know they can watch this meeting at makenbib.us. We'll be getting started here in just a few minutes with our public hearings, followed by commission meetings. Thank you.
How's everybody?
Shoot, how are you?
I'm doing better.
Hey, Commissioner.
Hey,
How Luke doing?
Luke is still in the hospital. He's still in prison.
No.
Yeah, he's much better though.
Dang.
They gave him the Trump treatment.
Oh, true.
I know they put him. He didn't took care of the hospital. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but he's doing much better.
Well, you sound good.
I feel better. A lot better.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is right at 3 o'clock now, so let me convene and call to order this public hearing. We've got one scheduled for 3 o'clock and another one scheduled for 4 o'clock. The first one will be on the anti-discrimination ordinance. The second one at 4 will be on the renaming of the city auditorium. We have issued invitations and selected people to speak, and because of time limitations, we've got a 3-minute limit on your remarks because we're trying to accommodate 10 people in favor and 10 people opposed. That's 30 minutes a side. 2 sides is an hour. That's what we've got set as far as time is concerned. So please help us with that. When I call your name, and what I plan to do is to alternate 1 for, 1 against, 1 for, 1 against, rather than seriatim all for and then seriatim all against. Just back and forth is the way that I will conduct the hearing. And you need to understand that this is a hybrid hearing. We have got several of our commissioners who are attending this hearing, public hearing, by Zoom. So there are a number of commissioners, Commissioner Allen, Commissioner Bivens, Commissioner Watkins, Commissioner Schlesinger, who are attending by Zoom. Commissioner Wynn is here. We expect Commissioner Jones to be here momentarily. And of course, I'm here. So let me read this disclaimer. It's not really a disclaimer. Let me read this notice first, and then we'll get started. Out of an abundance of caution, the Macon-Bibb County Commission meeting scheduled for Tuesday, November the 17th, beginning with the public hearings at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, will be available to the Macon-Bibb County Commissioners by video conference. The commission chambers will be closed to the public with the exception of invitees that have come to speak at the public hearing in order to slow the spread of COVID-19. Therefore, the public and press, others, members of the public and press may only access the meeting simultaneously online at www.maconbib.us or www.facebook.com/Macon-Bibb County. With that having been said, protocol would be, and Janice, are we asking our speakers after they are finished to leave by the front door or the back door? Which one? By the front door. So as I call your name, if you will come forward and speak, is there a headset or that they will need to use? No head. Just speaking, and there's a speaker on the computer that'll pick you up. You may take your mask off when you speak, but wear it at other times, coming, leaving, and while you're here with us if you can, and we would appreciate it. Also, if you can't, if you can help it, don't put your hands all over the computer and touch it, because that just may require us to try to clean it between people. So it would help us if you could do that too. We thank you very much for being here. We understand that this is a difficult time for all of us, and probably a difficult time to take what is a controversial and highly emotional issue for a lot of people. And obviously, as we are here with speakers, you would please refrain from any kind of heckling or support. Don't clap, don't yell, don't holler, don't scream, don't boo, don't hiss. We want to have order, and we want to have decorum as we continue with this public hearing. So, Chris, are we ready? And right, and members of the commission, you at home, if you wish to touch the upper left-hand corner of your screen and put it so that it plugs into whoever is speaking, you'll be able to see the speakers at the podium as they come up. With that having been said, let me start by calling somebody in support of the ordinance, first being Scott Mitchell. Scott, you're recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name's Scott Mitchell, and I am a downtown business owner and a member of the LGBT community. And first and foremost, I wanted to take a moment to make a couple of clarifications about things that were said during the commission meeting. Number one, this ordinance has no jurisdiction over school sports or schools in general. Those are set by the local school boards and the GHSA and GISA. Number two, this is an economic development bill as well. As a small business owner, I have never seen a group of people celebrating harming their own town's economy. If we don't pass this bill, our economy will be harmed. People want to come to Macon because we are a diverse population. The film industry loves Macon because we're a diverse population. I know this because they come in my store every time they're here and they tell me how much they love seeing my pride flag. One of the only reasons they love coming into my store is because of my pride flag. I want to talk another minute about trans messaging, because one of the commissioners in particular loves to say that men will invade women's spaces, leaving young girls vulnerable to harm. That is absolutely untrue. That's not how gender identity works, by the way. Transgender boys are boys, and transgender girls are girls. They belong in the restrooms that match their gender that they live every single day. It is illegal, and it will always remain illegal for anyone to enter a public restroom or locker room to harass or to intimidate someone. Another thing that a commissioner loves to say is how transgender people will violate modesty norms in restrooms and locker rooms. Mr. Jones loves to repeat that statement over and over and over and over and over again. For 3 years, we've heard the same statement. Transgender people value their privacy, like everyone else, and probably more so than everyone else, because they have been picked on and bullied for so long because of who they are. They have every reason to avoid drawing attention to their differences because they are so disproportionately victims of violence and harassment. A 2009 Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network survey said that 9 in 10 transgender students have been verbally harassed at school due to their gender identity, and more than half have been physically assaulted at school. Transgender students, like all students, they just want to use the restroom. That's all they want to do. The last point I want to make is this. Right now, LGBT people are the other in society. If you look back through our history, there's always somebody that's an other. At one point in time, Janice, my dear friend, and Miss Wynn, y'all were the other. Y'all were the ones 100 years ago that didn't have rights. People fought for you so that you can stand here today and do the jobs that you're doing. 60 years ago, I wish my friend Virgil was here. People were fighting for his rights, for Black people's rights, so that they could have rights. Today, it's LGBT people who are fighting for their rights. And guess what, Mr. Jones? You love to say this too. Only a minuscule amount of people are going to benefit from this bill, from this ordinance. Well, guess what? 20 years from now, we're going to be fighting for someone else's rights because that group is going to be deemed unworthy of rights and they're going to be the other. So we're not going to quit fighting. This doesn't end today. We'll be back in 10, 15, 20, 25, 100 years fighting for other people's rights too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted. Mr. Mayor, you're still muted.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Commissioner Watkins. Yes, I am still muted and I didn't mean to be. So address your comments to the chair and try to refrain from calling out names of individuals in your remarks. Next, we'll have somebody to speak in opposition to the ordinance, first being Linda K. Nally. Ms. Nally, would you come to the podium, please, ma'am?
If you always stand just a little further back, that way you're facing in the frame of the camera, and we'll adjust it as we can.
Honorable Mayor and Board of Commission, hear the clear, strong, present voice of constituents, young and old, who elected you to positions of political power. We object to portion, premise, and intent of proposed ordinance promoting the legal protection of sexual orientation and gender identity practices explicitly condemned by God. We petition presiding elected officials to abide by sworn duty to protect and preserve United States Constitution and the state of Georgia Constitution. Affirm sacred religious freedom for all and private property rights essential to individual and market economic prosperity. Remember sovereign holy God's proclamations concerning human sexuality and do not ratify proposed ordinance, full content of which was not duly disclosed to all Macon-Bibb County citizens prior to or since approval by Committee of the Whole on November 10. Proposed ordinance ratification would subject multitudes to divine wrath and judgment as a result of singular voluntary parliamentary action. Look closely at our common coin and paper money. In God we trust is boldly inscribed on all United States Treasury minted and printed money exchanges. How reckless for Macon-Bibb County commissioners to sponsor incongruous changes to an existing ordinance in a blatant attempt to overrule supreme authority and constitutional rights. Prayerfully consider potential consequences from ratification of comprehensive civil rights ordinance. Do not abandon reverence and responsibility. Vote to defeat ratification of proposed ordinance to amend Article 3, discrimination, Chapter 2 of Macon-Bibb County Code of Ordinances on this date, AD 2020. Thank you for your discernment.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nally. We appreciate that. Going back to someone in support of the ordinance, let me call on Scott Dickinson. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Dickinson, Pastor Dickinson. We appreciate it.
There we go. Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor Rickert and members of the commission. I am Reverend Scott Dickinson, and I serve as the senior pastor of the First Baptist Church of Christ, who in non-COVID times gathers just up the hill at the top of Poplar Street. And it's my honor to speak to you today in offer of my strong support of the proposed comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance. As a pastor, and a committed Christian, the teachings of Jesus and the witness of Scripture are central to my life. I believe the call to love God and with all that we are and to love our neighbor as ourselves is the beating heart of the gospel and should be the lens through which we read all other scriptures and inform everything we do. The golden rule, I believe, should be the standard for our common life together. I strongly believe these deeply held Christian beliefs are very much in line with this ordinance, which is an important and long overdue step in offering local protection to certain vulnerable and historically discriminated against populations in our community, and I say that unequivocally. Yet my view of Scripture is really not of concern in these debates, and nor is anyone else's. This debate has everything to do with what we as citizens believe about the Constitution and equal protection under the law. You will likely hear other religious voices from our community today who would have you believe that what is at stake here is government encroachment on religious liberty, but this ordinance rightly has no bearing on churches and religious institutions. I believe to do so would be an overstep of government infringing upon religion, no matter how much I hope churches would be places known for generous welcome. But the separation of church and state cuts both ways. In the same way that government should not infringe upon religion, religion should not infringe upon government and our common life together as citizens of this country. In our country, the dominant religious group does not get to decide what's best for the community as they see it through their particular view of their own religious beliefs. We are a diverse community, and we should celebrate that. What unites us as a people is not shared religious beliefs, but shared convictions under the rule of law and equal protection under it. Yet having said that, it's important that we not forget the reason that we must pursue these sorts of ordinances in the first place, which is the long history of discrimination in our community and elsewhere in our country, which sadly remains very real. It is not a coincidence that the lies and innuendos thrown around in this debate, particularly around transgender people concerning bathrooms and women and children, are of the same kind of those offered 50 years ago in debates around interracial marriage and the desegregation of schools. Let us not make those same mistakes again. With legislation such as this, Macon, like the rest of our nation, has an opportunity to do better, not just what I believe is Christian, but to do what is right under the law. Mr. Mayor, commissioners, let us not miss the mark again. Let us do what it takes, amend whatever language we must to do the right thing. Let us not let this moment pass. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor D. Changing over to someone.
You're muted.
I get by with a little help from my friends. Thank you, Rachel. Switching back over to someone in opposition to the ordinance, let me call on Pastor Rusty Smith. Pastor Smith, thank you very much for being with us, sir, and you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Rickert. It is an honor to be here today, and commissioners, we recognize you as well, and thank you for your service to this community. As a pastor of Mikado Baptist Church, which has been around Macon for 106 years, it's been my privilege the last 19 years to pastor there. And I realize that people disagree. I got that. Even Christians disagree. I understand that. But I want to give you a practical approach. And I think the language is kind of construed to some people and others, and I'm not an expert on the language either. But here's my practical approach, because that's what kind of guy I am. What if I said, when I walked into this door, I feel like the mayor today? And I walked right up to where Mayor Rickert is seated, and I said, because I feel like the mayor, I'm the mayor today. Or I feel like a commissioner today. And so it's basically based on my feelings. Whatever I feel, then that's okay. I'm a private pilot. I fly out of Middle Georgia Regional. What if I went into Hartsville Airport, went into a Delta cockpit and said to the pilot, I feel like the pilot today? There's standards and there's guidelines for these organizations that you wouldn't stand for it here, and they're not going to stand for it there. You can't just say that you feel like something and do whatever you want, because feelings come and go. You shouldn't be able to say, and this is the part that may be debated, I feel like a girl today, so I'm going in the girls' restroom, even though biologically I'm a boy, or vice versa. I feel like a boy today, even though biologically I'm a girl, so I'm going to take a shower in the boys' locker room. And we have to think of this. What are the unintended consequences? And I've heard this. Where does it stop? I've heard today already that this doesn't affect churches and schools. I was on the Zoom call the other day for almost 2 hours and heard that argument. But the bottom line is it's a foot in the door. And it may not affect us right now, but it very well could affect the very people who may disagree with this. One man said this, here's a quick personal illustration. He said, when both my daughters were toddlers, my wife and I determined that I would no longer assist with bath time or diapers. We did this to create a clear understanding for the girls about me as their dad and maintain a safe and healthy relationship as they grew older. He said, if I as their father chose and continue to choose not to be around them in such an intimate and vulnerable part of their life, now at the ages of 14 and 12, why would I ever approve and or allow another man to do likewise, to be in the same restroom and or locker room? And here's what I want to say as I close. Many have equated disagreement with hate. I disagree with my children. I've spanked my children, but I don't hate them. I've had arguments with my wife over 33 years. I disagree with my wife and vice versa. I don't hate my wife. I don't hate anybody in this room who holds a different view than I do. We may disagree, and that's fine. That's why this is the good old United States of America. We may disagree, but hate, that's not in my bones. I ask you to please vote no, and I thank you for your time. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to do better. Let me call now on Charlie Cox, who will talk to us in support of the ordinance. Mr. Cox, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Charlie Cox. I'm an attorney here in Macon since 1986, where my practice includes civil rights litigation. Just as the white moderates told Martin Luther King in the 60s to be patient and that civil rights needed more time, there's a narrative being spread now that this ordinance is vague and needs to be studied more, even though the county attorney first reviewed this ordinance more than a year ago. But as King responded from the Birmingham jail, human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability, and we must do the work now. Time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. Two things have predominated the opposition to this ordinance: schools and bathrooms. As the county attorney explained at the previous meeting, the ordinance does not cover public or private schools, but federal employment law now prohibits private, non-religious schools from discriminating on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. And federal courts have held that Title IX, not this ordinance, prohibit bathroom policies that require students to use bathrooms associated with the student's gender at birth. OSHA, not this ordinance, provides best practices guidance that says all employees, including transgender employees, should have access to restrooms that correspond to their gender identity. Perhaps there's a misplaced concern that the ordinance might be invalid in light of the Supreme Court's decision in the Masterpiece Cake Shop. The problem in Masterpiece was that the baker was entitled to a fair and neutral decision maker, but the body the baker had to present his case to displayed overt hostility to his religious views. The problem in Masterpiece wasn't the ordinance, it was the hearing body's overt bias during the hearing process. In our ordinance, hearings are conducted in front of hearing officers drawn from members of the state bar. The county has a long history of successfully using hearing officers as fair and neutral decision makers in employment appeals. And there's no reason to think the hearing officers would not be fair and neutral in this case. Our mayor has threatened to veto the ordinance unless transgender protections are removed. And he's opined to some that the phrase gender identity might be unconstitutionally vague. Case law absolutely refutes that view. And the sponsors of the ordinance have not received any opinion from the county attorney that the ordinance is constitutionally infirm. Gender identity was included in the county's 2017 ordinance prohibiting gender identity discrimination. I urge the commission to pass this ordinance. And Mayor Rickert, all we're asking you to do is nothing. As John Lewis said in 2015, you cannot have equality for some in America and not equality for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. We appreciate your comments. I'm not muting myself. Somebody mute.
So there's an echo, so you can hear Sarah's muting it to reduce the echo.
Ah, I'll do better about trying to automatically unmute myself every time. Katie Judah is here to speak in opposition to the ordinance. So Ms. Judah, you're recognized for 3 minutes. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Mayor and Commissioners, I've never spoken before a commission or been involved in the public square. My heart is taking care of my family, teaching my 3 children, and teaching at our school. However, my fear of the detrimental impacts this single ordinance could result in has compelled me to overcome my fears, find a substitute teacher, and arrange childcare for children in order to come and speak today. What does this mean for me and my children? I speak as a mom, a teacher, and a woman. I believe that this ordinance requires that I will allow myself and my children to be placed at an increased risk of harm when we visit the libraries, grocery stores, restaurants, and any other public establishment. As a mom of 3 young children, each 2 years apart, the public bathroom is always an adventure. Now I have the added worry of a man seeing us go in and deciding this would most certainly be an easy opportunity to do harm. When Target first made their declaration to allow men in women's restrooms, I decided not to step foot in a Target store again. If bathroom policies were changed in Macon-Bibb County, then as a mom and woman, I would certainly join thousands of others and take my business to Forsyth or Warner Robins, where I did feel safe using a public bathroom. I stand before you today representing the hundreds, if not thousands, of terrified moms, teachers, and grandmothers who have emailed and called urging you to please consider their safety and not pass the ordinance. This ordinance is designed to prevent discrimination. Certainly, we all agree that discrimination is wrong and must not be tolerated. However, I'm concerned in the name of non-discrimination, significant discrimination may well occur. What do I tell my friends who are Christian bakers, florists, and photographers who feel they cannot participate in same-sex weddings due to their religious beliefs? Based on the language of this bill, they will be in violation of the law and punished significantly because of their religious convictions. Out of 535 municipalities in Georgia, less than 10 have, to my knowledge, adopted anything like this. Given that few cities in Georgia have this type of law, we need to be especially careful to allow all viewpoints to be heard. Why are we trying to rush this ordinance to a vote so it can quickly become law? With our community currently in the midst of a pandemic, communication and forums are more challenging than normal. This creates an even more pressing need to allow time for an ordinance of this magnitude to be fully digested by the community. I plead with you to vote against this ordinance that is currently written. Send it back for more work so that everyone can feel protected. Allow more public input and perhaps even let it go to a public referendum. If we don't allow time for adequate discussion, we risk only listening to the loudest voices and perhaps miss out on valuable input from other concerned citizens. If it is approved by the commission, I call on the mayor to veto this ordinance. Thank you so much for your time and all the work that you do.
Ms. Judah, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here today. Someone in support of the ordinance, Andrea Cook. Hey, Ms. Cook, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm Andrea Cook. I'm a married mother of 8. I am a local business owner, and I'm a marriage and family therapist. The protection of civil liberties is the first of the 5 core principles on which Georgia Women and Those Who Stand With Us is built. We believe that the civil liberties of all Americans should be protected regardless of race, gender, religion, national origin, or sexual identity. Thus, we support the comprehensive civil rights ordinance, and we ask that you vote in the affirmative for this ordinance. I stand before you as a Black woman who has been discriminated against, period. Currently, I have no recourse. What you all decide today can change that. I stand here as well for the immigrant women. Discrimination in whatever form disproportionately affects immigrants, especially immigrant women. Immigrant women face all the problems that other women face, but they do so while speaking differently, looking differently, sometimes without legal status. Employers can and do exploit these obstacles. On average, immigrant women make $17,000 less per year than their American-born counterparts. Passing a comprehensive civil rights ordinance makes those of us who are in a protected class feel protected by the folks we hire to vote in our best interests. This ordinance would protect people from discrimination. Not having this ordinance in Macon-Bibb not only allows for abuse, it encourages it. Continuing to miss the mark on protecting all of Macon-Bibb citizens sends a message that the majority of us do not matter. And to add, gender identity is more than the genitalia with which you are born, and it costs nothing to acknowledge this. The video that we watched last week during the meeting was well choreographed bigotry masquerading as righteous justice. Such has no place in Macon-Bibb. Lastly, Georgia women asked the Bibb County Commissioners to declare before the people of Bibb County and the state of Georgia that you support the civil rights of all your constituents, that you are willing to stand up for legal protections, equal opportunities, and fluid participation in society for all the people in your respective districts. We implore you to pass the comprehensive civil rights ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cook. We appreciate your comments. Someone in opposition to the ordinance, Dr. Thomas Rush. Dr. Rush, thank you for being here, sir. You're recognized for three minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and commissioners. I want to thank you for your service to our city and our county. And thank you that you've established this public hearing so that you can hear the concerns of the citizens. And I'm grateful for the privilege to speak in opposition to the ordinance. I believe that any reasonable and fair-minded human being would oppose discrimination of an invidious nature, whatever form it might take. Any victim that would be hurt or injured by acts of invidious discrimination or racism should have the confident hope that all of us as citizens would come to their defense. In short, all citizens deserve respect and dignity, but they also deserve to have their constitutionally guaranteed freedoms protected. It's my belief that the proposed anti-discrimination ordinance will actually undermine fairness and freedom. It will not effectively accomplish the goal of preventing discrimination against all persons. In fact, it may well cause discrimination against some members of our community. One example of this would be the creation of an unfair playing field for girls and women in athletics, business, and education. We have achieved great success through Title IX changes to make fair and equitable treatment a greater reality for women in sports. This ordinance would nullify equal access for women in scholarships and educational opportunities if biological males are allowed to compete against biological females. Furthermore, the ordinance as written provides no real protection for people of faith or religious organizations. Tolerance should be a two-way street. Disagreement is not discrimination. This ordinance appears to target those whose views on marriage, sexuality, and gender differ from the government's view. In a pluralistic society such as ours, a diversity of beliefs should be respected and protected. Perhaps the most frightening thing of this ordinance is its unfairness to women and an increased potentiality of the violation of their bodily privacy and dignity by forcing them to share private spaces such as bathrooms and locker rooms with men. Macon is better than this. We should be concerned about protecting the dignity and safety of our women and children. Macon is a great place to live, work, and play. It's been my distinct privilege to pastor Tabernacle Baptist Church for the last 15 months in this community. Our church partners with local schools and civic organizations, and we've worked to make Macon a safe, secure, and prosperous place to live and do business. In closing, I would like to ask the commissioners to consider some serious negative consequences should this ordinance become law. It will hurt business as people from outside our city may choose to go elsewhere rather than Macon. It maybe even some who live in our city would choose to go outside the city to do business. This could cause businesses to close or relocate. Women's and domestic violence centers could be compromised and closed. Citizens could be punished simply for holding an opposing viewpoint. Free speech and religious liberty could be jeopardized. And finally, the city may subject itself to frivolous lawsuits, which could take tax funds from other areas that are much more important and needed. Most legal challenges to SOGI laws have been very successful in the courts. I would urge you to vote in opposition to the ordinance. Let's work to keep Macon a safe and secure environment for all. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Rush. We appreciate you being here and appreciate your comments. Next, someone in support of the ordinance. Let me call on Reverend Jake Hall. Reverend Hall, thank you very much for being with us, sir. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
It's always striking being in this room. Its beauty, its public nature. There's something sacred about the public contract that we have with each other here, where all people, all citizens have a voice. They can run for office. They can make laws that make this place better, more just, more economically accessible. We can make our community better by good work for the common good. We even rent out this space sometimes when production crews come through and they tell stories about times in our history when we have beat out injustice and discrimination. And we pat ourselves on the back when we tell those stories about civil rights wins, while avoiding entering into the fray for justice here and now. Green Book was filmed just down the corner. They made 3rd Street look like Brooklyn. But here, some of the conversations that I've heard, some of the arguments passed around in commission, well, it sounds like we're right back in that time. It won the Oscar a couple of years ago. Some of you probably saw it and felt real good about yourselves after you did. That we live in a time in which a Black man can go and stay in a hotel without fear in the South, that he has public accommodation rights. You watched that movie and you celebrated that journey of those two people learning more about each other and discovering the depth of the human existence. And yet, that's just a film. Here we are today. Here we are today contemplating whether or not it's okay for there to be an unofficial rainbow book out there where gay people have to check and see if they're safe, if their rights will be protected in housing, in their jobs, in public spaces. I don't know how we're so stuck on bathrooms and locker rooms. Where do you all think transgendered people go to the bathroom right now? Do you think that they're waiting on you, commissioners, to sign a document to go into a bathroom? Is there a rash of crimes now? If we choose to create protections for all, the only history we will be making is setting Macon-Bibb in line with what federal law is. And to pretend otherwise is just theater. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you very much, Reverend Hall. We appreciate you being here, appreciate your passion and your comments, sir. In opposition to the ordinance, let me call on Blake Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, thank you very much for being here. You're recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor Rickert and commissioners. I stand in opposition to the anti-discrimination ordinance as presented. First, let me say that the intent of this ordinance is not, I repeat, not to protect the rights of discrimination because of race, religion, color, sex, disability, or national origin. Discrimination of these rights has no place in our society, and these rights are protected by our Constitution and federal and state laws. But there is no doubt that this ordinance introduces 2 new rights based on a faulty understanding of 2 kinds of behavior: sexual orientation and gender identity. This ordinance seeks to make any rejection of these behaviors discrimination. In the preamble to the ordinance, it states, everything within it would promote the health, safety, morals, and welfare of the citizens of Macon-Bibb. But this ordinance doesn't do that. In fact, this ordinance takes away the business owner's freedom to practice religion and instead coerces many Christian and Jewish faith-based people in our county to accept the LGBTQ lifestyle as one of their moral beliefs. Like oil and water, the LGBTQ behaviors can exist in our society because our freedom allows them to coexist. However, these behaviors can never overrule the right of freedom of religion. As a small Christian business owner, I am sure I will be called a hypocrite because I stand before you to repudiate this ordinance and the lifestyle behind it. I am a sinner who by the grace of God accepted that Jesus Christ died on a cross and rose from the dead to save me from my sins and hypocrisy. Christ is the one who sets the morals and standards that I am called to live out in spite of my many failures. God has called homosexuality and sexual immorality an abomination, and I must do likewise. While I am called to speak up for God's truth, I am also called by Jesus to live out my faith by loving all people, even though I disagree with them, those who have caused me harm, or those that are different than me. There are business owners in Macon-Bibb that must comply with this ordinance if it passes, or they will face litigation and maybe possibly even financial ruin. They are being asked to sacrifice God's beliefs in order to conduct business. See, here's the crux of the matter. Do Christians in business stand on God's wisdom of how human life should be ordered, or do they violate their faith to promote these alternative lifestyles sanctioned by this ordinance? This is the peril facing Christian businessmen and women if this ordinance passes. I call on you as a commission to vote down this ordinance. And should that fail, I ask you, Mayor Rickert, for your veto. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. We appreciate your comments, appreciate your passion, appreciate your time being here, sir. Someone in support of the ordinance, Andrea Carter Freeman. Ms. Freeman, thank you very much for being here. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'd like to thank Commissioner Schlesinger, Lucas, Watkins, and Pro Tem Tillman for supporting this legislature. I work here in Middle Georgia, and my husband has a local business. We love Macon-Bibb. We adopted our son through Macon-Bibb Department of Family and Children's Services 7 years ago this week. From day one, we have always taught him about acceptance, that everyone is different, and that is how God made us, all different. Just like the song that he learned at Bible school one summer, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world, red, brown, yellow, black, and white. They are precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. At 10 years of age, Tyler knows when someone is being treated unfairly, and he certainly knows that it's wrong and to speak up. So while I was explaining to my son why I wasn't picking him up in carpool today, that I would be at this meeting, he wanted to know more about it and what this vote meant and what it could happen if it did not go through. My husband and I explained to him what discrimination was by definition and by examples. We shared that many family and friends that through his eyes are just that, they're family and friends, and their lives and relationships and choices are their own, and we respect that. He asked who this bill could affect. We shared with him that his friends' moms that are lesbians, our friends Scott and Bill who were married that are gay, his cousin Alex, my nephew who is biracial. It could affect him because he is part Hispanic, and many more. His reply was, it sounds like these people that are against this are scared, like they are afraid of something. It was a profound moment as a parent, because that is exactly what it is. I'd like to add that those that have spoke before me, scholars and those with a voice for the religious community, they spoke to the fact that there is LBGT already in our community. They are already using our restrooms. They're a part of your neighbors. They're a part of your congregation. They are here currently, and that crime rate has not gone up because of them. Going back to the conversation that we had with Tyler last night, he continued, just because they are different does not mean anyone should treat them how they would not want to be treated. Then he asked, does this legislature allow anyone to be hurt? We explained, no, not physically. However, it needs to pass that it allows everyone the same rights that every person should have, equally. He asked, why should anyone be against this? We told him we didn't understand why. And he finished by saying, we are all the same, really. We're the same inside. We all go to the bathroom the same. We all sleep the same, eat the same, breathe the same. Why would anyone not approve this? I support this legislature, and I ask that you please vote yes on this. Pass the ordinance as written with no amendments. Compromise is not comprehensive. The rights of all must be protected. All discrimination is wrong. I thank you for your time, and I please ask that you vote yes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Freeman. We appreciate your time, your passion, and your being here. I hope I don't mispronounce your name as I call the next person who is in opposition to the ordinance, Joe Bowker. Boker. I knew I had a 50% chance of getting it right. So, Mr. Boker, you're recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, thank you and good afternoon. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm Joe Boker, pastor of Berean Baptist Church here in Macon, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance. First and foremost, I oppose this ordinance on the grounds of the biblical principles of morality, marriage, and gender. This ordinance goes beyond just the blurring of lines, but it outright redefines what God has clearly established. I also oppose this ordinance due to some basic practical principles. Laws such as these clearly infringe on people's rights to live out their sincerely held religious beliefs. They have been used to penalize business owners, community shelters, even adoption agencies when they have simply acted on their beliefs concerning marriage and sexuality. SOGI laws do not adequately safeguard religious liberty or freedom of speech. SOGI laws essentially enforce a type of sexual orthodoxy and treat disagreement as discrimination. It elevates sexual orientation and gender identity to a protected class and seeks to force conformity of thought, speech, and actions on this issue. It does not result in equality before the law. Remember, disagreement is not discrimination. Then there is the danger of unintended consequences, such as what happened to Pastor Thomas's 5-year-old daughter just a couple of years ago at Oakhurst Elementary School in Decatur, Georgia. That was sexually assaulted by a male classmate in a school restroom. This male classmate was identified as gender fluid and was allowed to enter that restroom. Now, we've been told that schools are exempt from this particular ordinance, I understand, but I fear that may not truly be the case. In section 2-51 and the definition of the place of public accommodation, it certainly seems to leave the door open, certainly to our county recreation centers and perhaps even schools. And this leaves us in danger of such unintended consequences. A pro-transgender website says there are many different gender identities, including male, female, transgender, gender neutral, non-binary, agender, pangender, gender fluid, two-spirit, third gender, and all, none, or a combination of these. Should a place of business or a public accommodation have to sort through all of that? Obviously, I don't think so. So again, I urge you to vote no on this ordinance.
Mr. Boker, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here, appreciate your comments. Someone in support of the ordinance, Nancy Cleveland. Ms. Cleveland, thank you for being here. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you for having me. I am a Black woman who has also faced discrimination in my lifetime, and those who have spoken before me in support of this ordinance have made excellent points, so I'll be brief. Many are familiar with the famous quote from Martin Luther King, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Inspired by this quote is why I'm here to speak in support of the Comprehensive Civil Rights Ordinance. The CCR will provide protections for virtually everyone in our community against discrimination, because this ordinance will put in place a system that would allow citizens of Macon to bring valid cases that can be heard and resolved at the local level quickly and easily. This allows us to resolve complaints without having to file suit in the federal court system. This is a sensitive subject that shouldn't be discussed with inflammatory language. I feel it was unfair for us to be forced to watch a video whose source was not cited, or have arguments reduced to concerns over who gets to use certain bathrooms when the ordinance means so much more. Furthermore, this ordinance has no jurisdiction over schools. And so the arguments put forth by commissioners and others last Tuesday and even today are based on stereotypes, bad information, and fear. The statements made and videos shown were inflammatory, divisive, and distrustful. This ordinance has no say on whether trans students would use the bathroom of their sex of birth in schools, and thus schools and other institutions will be left to make that decision themselves. The current ordinance must not be amended to exclude gender identity protections. Whatever concerns or faith beliefs held, it's just not okay to discriminate against anyone. This ordinance makes that clear, and to amend the ordinance in order to exclude some individuals would perpetuate discrimination for many years to come, like the discrimination we were forced to hear and view last Tuesday. I am not one to condemn any people, especially with arguments from the Bible, which was once used to enforce slavery. Interpretation is left up to the individual. By not passing this ordinance, this will cause the transgender community to face the same discrimination experience when our country gave white women the right to vote in 1920, but did not give Black people the right to vote until 45 years later in 1965. Moreover, locally in Macon, we've lost beautiful, lush public spaces because of enforced discrimination, like Baconsfield Park. This is what happens when we don't take a stance against discrimination. So let's not repeat history.
Ms. Cleveland, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your comments. Someone in opposition to the ordinance now, Richard Brown. Mr. Brown, thank you very much for being here, sir. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
I want to begin by thanking Mr. Mayor and the commissioners for your service to our community. I'm a lifelong resident of Bibb County, as is my wife. Both of our families chose to move to Bibb County over 150 years ago. Unlike many of our contemporaries who have chosen to relocate to other communities, we've chosen to stay. When my wife and I both had opportunities to go to college elsewhere, we chose to go to Mercer. When I had the opportunity to attend law school elsewhere, I chose to stay in Macon and go to Mercer. We love our community. We are committed to our community, and a major component of our commitment is our desire to have a safe community for all of our fellow citizens. Unfortunately, the ordinance as drafted will be a direct causation of a more dangerous Macon and Bibb County, especially for women and children in our community. Evidence to support this is found in the exhaustive report authored by Melody Wood. In her report, which examines the problematic nature of the type of ordinance before us today, she quotes Kenneth Lanning. Mr. Lanning is a former FBI supervisory agent assigned to the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. The report quotes Mr. Lanning as stating that allowing a man, based on his claim to be a woman, to have unlimited access to women's restrooms, changing rooms, showers, etc., will make it easier for sex offense behavior to happen more against women and children in the community. Additional evidence comes from the Hands Across the Aisle Coalition. This is a broad coalition of women, both self-described feminists and self-described traditionalists, who have banded together to combat the inherent anti-woman positions of this type of ordinance. Ms. Kelly Haver, a leading member of the coalition, is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. As a woman, she now fights against these type of ordinances, and she first encountered the push to allow men and women's restrooms while on staff at her local YMCA. As a part of her job duties, she conducted regular sex offender screenings, and the results were disturbing. Listen to what she recounts. I would find somebody who'd infiltrated the system, because that's what predators do. They prey and they seek opportunity. And I recognize this, that this new policy that they were asking us to embrace at the YMCA was basically the equivalent of rolling out a welcome mat for any man who wanted to invade a woman's space. The evidence being clear is very clear. As you vote this afternoon, commissioners, remember those who will be most impacted by your vote, the women and children of Bibb County. Their safety is literally in your hands. If you vote for this ordinance today, you are voting to create a community that is more hostile, more dangerous for women. Based on that fact, and on that fact alone, I ask that you vote no, even if you voted yes last week. I ask that you vote no in support of the women and children in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We appreciate you being here and appreciate your comments. Going back into someone in support of the ordinance, let me call on Zarian Newbill. Ms. Newbill, thank you very much for being here. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Zarian Newbill, founder and executive director of the NUMA organization, which is for trans women of color. Normalizing women that look like me is why I am here in support of the non-discrimination ordinance. I am a native of Macon, Georgia. I grew up here, and it brings me joy to know that equality is now at the forefront. However, we still have some work to do in acceptance for transgender people. I am not going to give you statistics, but I'm going to make you aware about our struggles. Don't let preconceived opinions and unreasonable feelings prevent your decision from making Macon, Georgia a safe place for transgender people to call home. Every human should be afforded the comforts of not being discriminated against. Voting against this is a vote against equality for everyone. Did you know that the life expectancy for Black trans women is 35 years old? I am 31. 35 trans women have been murdered just this year because we have no governing laws to protect us. And now you have a chance to make that change here in Macon, Georgia. We are now living in an era where the climate of discrimination is changing, and many people are tired of the toxicity that it carries, especially against transgender people. Political officials say they are for all people. Well, here is your history-making chance to show that you can be for all people regardless of views. Politicians should become more aware of transgender struggles such as lack of employment, healthcare victimization, voting, housing, and incarceration, discrimination, and bullying in schools, just to name a few. The unsubstantiated statistics that transgender people are confused, perverts, and inhumane is a false narrative that has been planted through ignorance. Commissioners, there has never been any evidence that shows that trans women using the women's restroom is an infringement on women's rights. However, what is recorded evidence is that over 350 of my trans brothers and sisters have been murdered this year worldwide. Animals have more protections than transgender people. So now is the time to pass this ordinance so people that look like me can be protected against discrimination. We, transgender people, are the most marginalized group of people without any real enforceable legal protections. Transgender people have not been able to tap into the American dream of success because of the continuous denial of basic human rights of people that look like me. The strongest people on this planet, which happen to look like me, have continuously pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps and pray that someday the world will see us as human and not inhumane. Macon, Bibb County, be the example and show that the time for equality is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Newbill. We appreciate your comments. Next, someone in opposition to the ordinance, let me call on John Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, thank you very much for being here, sir. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Mayor Rickert, commissioners, my name is John Mitchell and I'm a lawyer practicing for 33 years. Ordinances are permitted if they promote public health, safety, and welfare in our community. This ordinance will allow men who dress as women or identify as a woman to have full access to facilities provided for privacy of women and girls. This includes restrooms, locker rooms, and women's shelters. This opens the door for bad actors with bad intentions to prey and assault on women and girls. This is not a hypothetical argument, it's a reality. For example, just up the road in Decatur, Georgia, a precious, innocent 5-year-old Black girl was sexually assaulted by a boy who identified as gender fluid and was allowed to use the girl's restroom. That girl didn't stand a chance. Are we going to put our daughters at risk the same way? No woman or girl in our community should be required to share a restroom with a biological man. What would a father or grandfather be moved to do if he watched his daughter or granddaughter walk into a restroom and see a man dressed as a woman walk in behind her? Would you as a parent or grandparent have a legitimate concern for your daughter or granddaughter's privacy, sense of security, or physical safety. This ordinance creates a danger to girls and women that does not presently exist in our community. Second, this ordinance will punish people of faith across our community. Many people of faith hold to the teaching from the Bible that says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Whether it's the doctor, nurse, or healthcare provider who respectfully declines to perform a procedure that alters the biological sex from birth, or the baker, photographer, printer, equipment provider, or facility owner who respectfully declines to provide services to celebrate a gender transition, all of these individuals will be required to make a choice. Either forsake your faith, conviction, or pay a fine or leave the community to do your work. It sends the same message to those considering a move to Macon-Bibb. Many people of faith will tell you their talents come from a creator, and you can't separate them from that priority relationship in their lives. The majority of citizens in our community do not support invading the privacy of girls, putting at risk the safety of women and girls. Make no mistake, this ordinance affects every mother and grandmother, wife, daughter and granddaughter, and sister in our community. The majority of people in our community also believe it is unfair to require people to sacrifice their faith convictions to avoid punishment from their local government. This ordinance clearly will not promote public health, safety, or welfare in our community. Macon is a remarkably inclusive community, which makes this ordinance unnecessary. Mayor Rickert, the people of our community owe you an unrepayable debt of gratitude. Your leadership has been a vital part of why we enjoy a vibrant downtown community. Since December of 2007, I believe, you have put our community first, setting aside your own successful law practice. Your wisdom, your leadership, and your voice is needed on this matter before you leave office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. We appreciate your kind comments and appreciate your remarks and appreciate you being here. Someone in support of the ordinance now, Sarah Gerwig Moore. Sarah, welcome. Good to see you. You're recognized for 3 minutes, please, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Sarah Gerwig Moore. As you know, I'm the Associate Dean of Mercer Law School, but I'm here in my personal capacity. I'm a constitutional lawyer and I have a master's degree in theology. But I'm mostly here as a longtime Maconite, a taxpayer, and a mother to speak to the kind of community I want to raise my children in. I want to be in a community that learns from our mistakes, that cares for one another, that's a place that my sons want to make their home when they have a choice in the matter. I support the Comprehensive Civil Rights Ordinance on the following grounds: moral, legal, faith-based, and practical. Discrimination still occurs, and this ordinance stands against it and gives a simple, inexpensive, and practical way to address it when it happens. You have an excellent county attorney's office, and they can tell you that this modest ordinance that's been successful in other communities does not add to the list of classes of people currently protected by federal law. In the United States Supreme Court decision in Bostock versus Clayton County, a 6-3 opinion authored by Justice Neil Gorsuch, the court held it is impossible, this is a quote, to discriminate against a person for being homosexual or transgender without discriminating against that individual based on sex under Title VII. This is already the law. Charlie Cox spoke to the OSHA and Masterpiece Cake case, which does not prohibit these kinds of ordinances. All this ordinance does is protect our friends, our colleagues, our visitors, and our children from discriminations in the spaces outlined, not churches, not private clubs, not schools and locker rooms. You might say, well, if these protections already exist, then why do we need this law in Macon? Well, unfortunately, Macon is a place with a history and present of discrimination. We love this place. We love, and we don't want to see the flaws, but we've heard today about the dangers and the protections needed. Macon also has a history of not recognizing federal protections after they've been passed. Federal protections did not apply to women and minorities here in Macon when they were passed as federal law. And I don't have to remind any of you of how long it took to integrate public schools after the United States Supreme Court decision in Brown versus the Board of Education. You have an opportunity today to make a statement here that not only do we recognize and follow federal law, we do so willingly. You don't have to make us with the National Guard. These are already our values. And speaking of values, I've had the pleasure and joy of working with many of you through College Hill on economic development, bringing the community and the creative class here to Macon. There is an economic impact to discrimination. It's just not the economic impact that you all have worked so hard to make your legacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Gerwig-Moore. We appreciate your comments and appreciate you being here. Someone in opposition to the ordinance, Pastor Donald Reed. Pastor Reed. Thank you for your patience and thank you for being here with us today. You're recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and County Commissioners for allowing us to speak. I rise in opposition to this ordinance because this ordinance will endanger both women and children if men are allowed to enter the other's restroom. I do understand that nonprofits, including churches, are presently exempt from the ordinance, but what does it say that you won't come back later and try to impose it upon us? This is not a good ordinance. It seeks to redefine gender not on the basis of science, but on the basis of political and social attempts to reshape the culture, what I call social engineering. Nothing in this ordinance makes sense. Absolutely nothing. For no one can self-identify at will what their sex is. I cannot identify I'm a man today, Tuesday, November the 17th, 2020, and tomorrow, November the 18th, I can identify as a woman. Doesn't make sense. Tea is fluid. Water is fluid. Gender is not fluid. There are only two genders, male and female. And none of us chose the gender, our genders before we got here. And since none of us chose the gender before we got here, we certainly can't choose a gender now that we are here. So no one can identify as an opposite sex, no more than I can identify as a Macon Bibb commissioner. If I can self-identify today as a Macon Bibb commissioner, then one of y'all is in my seat. A person's gender is rooted in science, biological science. Biological science for millennia states that our sex is determined at birth. But now you want us to believe that when a baby is born and someone asks you, is it a boy or girl, you're going to now tell us you don't know. You got to wait and see. I can look around this room and tell whether it's a male or a female in this room. See, a biological sex, if sex is biological, and it is, then any change to it is behavioral. It's about behavior. It's not about science. This is not about hate. I'm not up here speaking hate because that's the term they're going to use. Hate. I don't hate nobody. I don't. But what's going to happen is, particularly with the churches, this is going to have some unintended consequences. Because if churches are Christians who work in Macon, who believe that in traditional marriage between a man and a woman, they'll label haters, racist. There is no transgender race. There is no gay race. There's a black race. I was born black. That was not something I chose. I'm proud to be that, but I was born that way. Nobody's born gay. Nobody's born transgender. This ain't a civil rights issue. That's what people want to couch this as. This is a civil rights issue. Listen, everybody got civil rights. You're born in this country, you're an American citizen, you automatically have civil rights by being virtue an American citizen. This is a special rights issue. Let's not fool ourselves. Like Dr. Phil McGraw said, the first test that one's thinking is rational is that it is grounded in objective facts. We don't have the liberty to ignore what's objectively true. Truth is that which corresponds to reality. 2 + 2 = 4. It never equals 5. You can't. I know that many of you are thinking that you're helping, but you're going to actually be hurting even the transgender people, women, and children. We're seeing across the country now that boys are allowed to compete in girls' sports, and it's decimating women's sports. They couldn't win running against another boy. So what do? They identify as a girl and then go running the girls' race and they win. I thought y'all was for the women. This stuff is crazy. Doesn't make sense. Do the right thing. Vote down this ordinance. If you're doing this to attract business, then cut taxes. And while you're at it, cut mine too.
Thank you, Pastor Reed. We appreciate your passion, appreciate you being here with us. Someone in support of the ordinance, Emily Wright, let me call on you at this point in time and recognize you for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I want to thank you for having us all here today and hearing from us and for considering this very important matter. My name is Emily Wright. I first moved to Macon from Tennessee in 2014 to attend Mercer Law School. As soon as I graduated, I got the heck out and I moved to Atlanta, where I knew I could get a job at a big law firm that would have protections against discrimination against LGBT people. But I'm a small town country person. I missed Macon. My wife missed Macon. We missed the magic that's in this community that calls people home. We missed the local restaurants. We missed watching downtown grow and develop, and we missed the friends that have become family in our time here. So after 2 years in Atlanta, we moved back. We are the young professionals that you want to attract in a town. We buy local. We're both attorneys. Heck, during the lockdown, I think we both gained about 30 pounds because we bought takeout from every single local restaurant in town every single night. We are the kind of people that you want in your town, whether we're straight, gay, or anything else. We're the type of people you want to come to your town to live, to settle, to support the economy. And I've heard a whole lot today and last week about fear. I've heard, well, this could happen. Well, I fear that this may be what's going to come next. And I'd like to talk to y'all about fear that's real. The fear that's real is the fear that I felt when I was approved for an apartment and then showed up to meet the landlord and was immediately denied on the spot because he doesn't rent to people like me. I was afraid when my car broke down in Savannah, Georgia. Well, not in Savannah, somewhere in betwixt. And I tried to get a hotel room in the middle of the night and I was told, we don't have a room for you. I've been afraid every single time I have entered a public restroom because of inflammatory, fear-mongering language that makes people look real closely at who's going in the restroom. Because some people think that I don't look the way that a woman should look, I've been subjected to violent threats, to actual violence. I have actually been sexually assaulted in a public restroom by someone who thought I did not belong there. So when community members, when the commission talks about these issues, we're not talking about hypothetical, scary, big city transgender people who are coming to attack your children. We're talking about your neighbors. I am your neighbor. I'm not a pervert. I'm not a predator. I'm a member of this community who should be valued for what I can contribute, not treated like a threat to your family. All LGBT Maconites want is the right to be treated with fairness and with dignity. That's it. That is it. Nobody wants churches to change their beliefs. Nobody wants schools to change how they operate. All we want is the same dignity and respect that everyone else receives. I urge you to enact this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wright. We appreciate you being here and you appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mr.
Thomas Peter Allen is here, and will speak in opposition and is our final speaker. Mr. Allen, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon. My name is Pete Allen. I am an attorney and concerned citizen who has made my livelihood in Macon-Bibb since, as a young law student, I clerked for Mayor Rickart's law firm 25 years ago. Briefly stated, my opposition to this ordinance is practical, political, and metaphysical. My practical objection is that if this ordinance passes and is approved by the mayor, the elected leaders of this community could well be embarking on a path that will find Macon-Bibb County embroiled in time-consuming, expensive litigation over its meaning and enforcement. It is precisely the same sort of ordinance at issue in many other cases that have wended their way through the courts. So if this ordinance becomes law, it is likely not a matter of whether it will be challenged in court, but when. I dare say you are not being good stewards of the monetary contributions extracted from Macon-Bibb taxpayers to pursue a course of action, risking depletion of the public coffers for no real citizen gain. My political objection is that the issue is quite polarizing and divisive, and the commission's choosing one side in what is really a hotly contested cultural battle does not foster the unity which our community desperately needs. The respective positions on this issue are sincerely and respectably held on both sides by many people of goodwill, but those views are ultimately irreconcilable. In that circumstance, political bodies such as this do better to leave the public arena open, where competing ideas can be discussed and tested, where people can respectfully engage and disagree. Passing this ordinance into law forecloses such engagement, however, and blithely disregards real concerns from dissenters about such things as the harm that may come when biological males begin disrobing in bathrooms or locker rooms with biological females. That is not a way to promote harmony. I believe my metaphysical objection is the most important. Loosely defined, metaphysics is the philosophical discipline dealing with questions of higher meaning, i.e., is there a God? What is man's place in the universe? You get the idea. Christians believe those questions are answered in the Bible, particularly in the teachings of Jesus Christ. Committed Christians seek to live their lives in accordance with the revealed truths of Scripture, and numbered among those revealed truths are that God created each individual as either a man or a woman, and that God intends marriage to be solely between a man and a woman. In America, the First Amendment does not say simply, I am permitted to believe what I want about God's truth as revealed in the Bible. It says I cannot be constrained from the free exercise of my religion. Impermissibly, this ordinance would constrain Christians' free exercise of their religion by forcing them in the churches where they worship and the parochial schools where they send their children to promote and abet conduct that violates the aforementioned scriptural precepts. And I think that is the point. This ordinance has been authored and suggested to this body by an outside advocacy group so that it can be wielded as a cudgel against those, particularly religious conservatives, who do not subscribe to the new views on sexual orientation and gender identity. This government should know better than to allow itself to be used to lay a tripwire that will ensnare many citizens who mean no ill will, but desire to live their lives, conduct their businesses, and educate their children in ways that do not offend the true and living God. I ask that you vote no. And Mayor Rickert, if it passes, I ask that you veto it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. We appreciate you being here. That concludes all of the speakers. So we want to continue with our next public hearing, which will be on the renaming of the auditorium. We're already about 15 minutes late starting that hearing, but can somebody open that back door and let in our next group of speakers, please? Are they front door, back door, side door? Come in and find one of the seats where there is no blue placard. You got some seats where there is no blue placard. Those are the ones where we want you to sit, please. Come in. Find a seat with no blue placard. Find a seat with no blue placard. Those are the ones where we want you to sit. If it has a blue placard, please do not sit there. Find a seat with no blue placard and sit in that seat. Those are the seats that are assigned no blue placard. Is where we want you to sit, please. That'll kind of promote our social distancing objectives. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Want to apologize to you first for being 15 minutes late, and also to tell you that we had a good public hearing before. It just ran just a little bit long, but thank you for your patience. This is a hybrid meeting, and you have most of our commissioners attending by Zoom. So when you stand up to speak and come and talk into the computer, they can see you. And we do have a quorum of our commission on the line with us today for this public hearing. When you come to the podium to speak, step back just a step or two further than you normally would so that you'll show up in the computer screen and can be seen. It would help us then if you did not put your hands all over the computer or touch it. If you know, there is hand sanitizer for you as well as wipes if you need them up there while you speak. Lastly, this is a public hearing, and we're here to express different viewpoints. But please be respectful of other speakers. No hissing, no booing, no clapping, no applauding. We'll call one at a time and go back and forth between the two sides so that you can come and share your point of view with us. We're going to start. Okay. We're going to start with someone in favor of the resolution to rename the city auditorium in honor of former Mayor C. Jack Ellis, and we'll start with Nancy Cleveland. Ms. Cleveland, thank you very much for being here with us. You're exactly right. You may remove your mask when you come up to talk so we can better hear you, and just put your mask back on when you leave.
Right,
thank you. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Okay. My mother, who adopted me, was born in Macon in 1941, and she feels proud and honored to know that the city she left as a young 18-year-old girl from the colored-only waiting room at the terminal station, where she wasn't even allowed to use the same bathrooms as white people, had elected its first and only Black mayor, C. Jack Ellis, in 1999. She was furthermore disheartened to hear that on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020, a local public elected official said that yes, he was the first Black mayor of Macon, but that doesn't make him qualified to have things named after him. I really have a problem with us naming things after people who are still alive. These arguments presented against the renaming of the auditorium in C. Jack Ellis's honor last week at the commission meeting stated that Ellis was a divisive and distrusted character, and certainly not the right person to name the Macon City Auditorium after. This was also an argument that we should have a public forum for, and instead we should let a company pay to have naming rights on it, like Geico or 5 Star. Earlier this same year, the opposite argument was raised when it came to renaming Central City Park. We were told then that we have named many things without a public hearing. And quite frankly, if we had a public hearing every time we wanted to name something, then no work would get done. Yet here we are. Dunlap Park is named after a captain in the Confederate Army, and the divisiveness of his character was not questioned when the opportunity came to rename a park after him. In addition, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, the world's busiest airport by passenger travel since 1998, was named by the first Black mayor of Atlanta. Clearly, there is a belief amongst many that being the first Black mayor of any city is befitting honor in America when you look at our nation's history and how far African Americans have come in the face of many adversities. Whether or not you agree if Dunlap Park should be renamed after a Confederate general or not, we can admit that as a country, the topic of Confederate statues and honoring the armies and generals in that army has been a divisive one. So if his divisiveness of character does not prevent us from naming a park in his honor in the heart of Macon's downtown core, then why would C. Jack Ellis's divisiveness of character be called into question as noteworthy of discrediting him for this honor? Why would him being the first and only Black mayor not make him qualified to name things after him? That statement implies that being the first Black person to accomplish things in this country means nothing. His character is being scrutinized instead of his accomplishments. They're actually being belittled. This is not the same logic that has been applied to naming in the past, so why now? Furthermore, when you bring up the argument to rename it after Otis Redding, who has been gone for over 50+ years and whose statue sits in a park that is not named after him, it seems as if you're pitting Black men against Black men and saying one Black man is better than the other. So I hope that the people who are coming to speak against this ordinance being passed can make points that aren't just personal sentiments and instead can back up, firstly, why the divisiveness of C. Jack Ellis's character is something that needs to be discussed when the divisiveness of General Dunlap's character was not. Secondly, why we need to have a public hearing for renaming this public space when we did not have a public hearing in the past, and it was even stated by a commissioner that if we had public hearings on naming all these things, we wouldn't get any work done. And thirdly, why we are here. And thirdly, why being the first and only Black mayor in Macon is not something that qualifies him for having things named after him.
Thank you, Ms. Cleveland. We appreciate you being here and appreciate your comments. The next someone that is in opposition to this measure is Beverly Olson. Let me call on Beverly Olson. Beverly, thank you for being here. You're recognized for up to 3 minutes.
I have been a resident of Macon for 42 years. The auditorium was built in 1925. It is the largest copper dome in the South, the country, or the world. It's not been discussed exactly how it's discerned that. They've hosted variety of musical talents of all genres. Macon wants to be known as a music city, and with Mercer's refurbishment of Capricorn Studios, it is well on its way with new musicians recording here. Have you lost your minds on naming the beautiful city auditorium after C. Jack Ellis? When Ellis was mayor, we were the laughing stock of Georgia, whether you knew it or not. He nearly bankrupted the city. He took trips to Africa and came back Hakeem Mansour Ellis when he converted to Sunni Muslim. He came back to Macon and said that he was a member of Unionville Baptist Church. In August of 2007, he sent a letter of solidarity to socialist Hugo Chavez. And when he questioned, he stated that it wasn't for his politics, it was for his humanitarianism. In April 2008, Mayor Rickert got a letter from U.S. Attorney Max Wood accusing the city of Macon of misusing $900,000 for a Safe Schools Initiative grant. It was during Ellis's tenure. Ellis said the money had been spent on the program and no criminal charges were made. Once again, Macon looked bad during Ellis's time. More could be told about other issues, but I won't get into the weeds. The auditorium is a gem. Leave it as City Auditorium or name it for Otis Redding or other musical talent and make this a true music city. Mr. Mayor, you must veto this proposal as it would be too hard to explain to our tourists who C. Jack Ellis is or was. I'm sure there is another building in the city to put his name on, just not the City Auditorium.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. We appreciate you being here and appreciate your comments. Next, someone in support of the resolution, George Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad, thank you for being here. We appreciate your patience. You're recognized for 3 minutes, sir.
Peace and blessings. Macon is a city whose historical racism leaves it conspicuously sparse and absent of statues, monuments to Black people of any kind, significant buildings, lasting acts dedicated in memory of the achievement of Black leaders Conversely, there are many white people who, regardless of what their character is, what kind of life they lived, are commemorated in this city. Doesn't matter whether they were virtuous or what they did was morally appropriate. What is really very true about Mayor C. Jack Ellis is that he accomplished great things as a mayor of this city. What he left for this city was the work of restoring an airport that had not been restored or worked on, had been neglected for 40 years. The work and having the vision of a rapid rail and wanting to reinvigorate, or wanting to instate the terminal station and reacquiring that property and making it beautiful, acquiring the Fort Hawkins, providing for youth midnight basketball, reducing crime, having a love for the people, whether they were black or white or at all. And it's unfortunate that so many people don't appreciate, if you are black, if you are African, you have African descent, it meant a lot for him to make a connection with Africa, with Elmina, which is part of our homeland, part of our ancestry. What we have been through as slaves in this community, as enslaved people who built these buildings, in fact, built the auditorium, built City Hall, built the Southern Trust building, built the terminal station. We have had a great contribution here in this land. Our ancestors have picked cotton. Our ancestors have enriched this very city. And it's a miracle to see a child who comes up from the roots of slavery and becomes a great leader in this city and does great things. Jack Ellis is vilified, as every black leader is vilified. And I ask you all to look at the racism and the white supremacy that's resting in your heart, that's gripping you, that is keeping this city back, keeping this community back, that's gripping this whole nation. Look in the mirror and realize that you are part of that. You are party to that in this day and time, regardless whether you own slaves or not. You perpetuate that mindset. And if you want to change, if you want your children to have a better future, your grandchildren to have a better future, you need to take acts like this. Name them a building for a great man. This very city hall could be named for Mayor C. Jack Ellis. He brought many parks. He was a culturally astute person. He brought film to Macon. He did so many things. He brought millions of dollars. He gave the blueprint for downtown Macon's being developed. He laid a base that Mayor Rickert came in and could just go forward from that base. All of these accusations, they're baseless, and we have to stop living on lies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. We appreciate your comments and appreciate you being here. Next, someone in opposition to the resolution, Mr. Rhett Walker. Rhett, thank you very much for being here. You're recognized for up to 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you all very much. As a resident and a citizen of Bibb County, Macon and Bibb County, I come before you in total opposition to the naming of the municipal auditorium in the name of C. Jack Ellis. The municipal auditorium is a beautiful, beautiful building. It has a tremendous amount of architectural characteristics to it that are unique and beautiful. Naming a building as the municipal auditorium is, you need to have a very high standard because of the beauty and architecture and the history of that building. The raising of a bar, a standard should be very, very high in naming such a building for an individual. C. Jack Ellis does not meet that standard to me. There are a lot of people in this community that are worthy of naming that building for them. Beverly mentioned some. I didn't know she was going to mention Otis Redding, his family. I agree. Little Richard, you can think of the Almond brothers and Greg Almond. There are others. The list is long of people who could represent our community and our county and our area of the state with honor and dignity and respect by putting a name on such a beautiful building. I hope y'all, in making your decision, will consider the history of the Macon Auditorium and what it means to not just people here in Middle Georgia, but around the country and around the state. It is a unique, unique building. It should have somebody's name on it. that carries the dignity and the honor and respect that that building deserves. I thank you for your time, and I hope you have a nice afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. We appreciate your comments. I do not have anybody else listed as here to speak in support of the resolution. So if not, I'm going to go back and go to the next person in opposition. That's Mr. Billy Hester. Mr. Hester, thank you.
Mayor Rickard.
Yes, sir. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
I'm not going to stand here and call anybody a racist. I'm not going to stand here and degrade Jack Ellis or anybody else who's ever been a public official to this great city. And sir, I too picked cotton in Fitzgerald, Georgia when I was 6 years old. But I've been here 70 years thereabouts, and the Macon City Auditorium has always been that, the Macon City Auditorium. For about 100 years, many deserving people have come and gone over those years that could have the auditorium named after them. But I think in the realm of things, it should always be the Macon City Auditorium. It's ours. It's nobody else's. No name should be on that. I don't care if it's little Richard, who was, by the way, was a janitor when he was in high school at the City Auditorium and became a famous entertainer. I don't think, well, Luther Williams was the mayor when it was built, but he has a ball field named after him, Luther Williams Field. Wallace Miller was the mayor when it probably became a prominent fixture in 26 through 28. And gosh, it could have been named after him because he probably oversaw the beginning of the City Auditorium. And probably the most famous person that should be, if anything, named after would be W.L. Young Striblin, the prominent heavyweight boxer from Macon, Georgia. Young Striblin trained across the street at the YMCA under Mr. P.A. MacArthur, who also could be a deserving person to have it named after. He was famous. And he fought many a fight in the City Auditorium. And by the way, he had a record of 233 boxing victories against only 12 defeats in almost 300 fights, and had more knockouts than any professional boxer until the mid-60s, with 127 knockouts before it was broken by a boxer named Moore. Well, W.L. Young Striblin was the first person buried in the City Auditorium. Not only did he have his funeral there, 25,000 Maconites, or people from all over, came to view his body laid in state at the City Auditorium, and 10,000 remained for the funeral. So there you go. He lost the heavyweight boxing championship to Max Schmeling, and it was the only time he'd ever been knocked out, but it was a TKO because he never went down with 15 seconds left in the last round. And he died of a horrible accident on Vinewood Avenue when he was only 28 years old, so he didn't have a chance to make a comeback. So growing up in Macon, I've always never heard anything, but we gotta have something at the City Auditorium. Yes, sir. I went to see Gene Autry and his famous horse Champion at the City Auditorium in Macon, Georgia, when I was a kid. Then growing up, all the basketball games were held at the City Auditorium. We didn't have a Coliseum. We had to play basketball. We didn't have to. I love playing at the City Auditorium. My greatest game ever, 38 points, 15 rebounds. Last game I played at the City Auditorium. The crowd was right on top of it. It was so much fun. And that was my time. And a lot of great athletes come through there. Tommy Mixon, state championship, Lanier, played at one of the leading scorers ever at Mercer University, played professional basketball. You have Bobby Henley and Bobby Bryant, all those great athletes came through there, could be named after them. But, you know, they would all tell you, it needs to stay the Macon City Auditorium. It is ours, the Macon City Auditorium. It's not the C. Jack Ellis Auditorium. It's not the Little Richard Auditorium. It is not the Otis Redding Auditorium. It is one of the few things we have left, the Macon City Auditorium. And Ronnie Thompson was the mayor when the Coliseum was built. You don't see Ronnie Thompson's name on the Macon Coliseum? No. But, you know, maybe it should be if we were talking about any things. Well, maybe Ronnie didn't have a great reputation either. I don't know. But anyway, a lot of things somebody said earlier. You can name that street in front of the Oglethorpe Homes, Bill's Hills, what Jack Ellis helped get done. That would be a good place to put Jack Ellis's name. Or one of the gyms at Moore Park, or the gym there in Ursery Park, or maybe something else at Titan Square Park. But the City Auditorium is just that. It's the City Auditorium.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, Madam Clerk. I have to clarify why I'm in opposition of it. I'm sorry, step back. Okay. Is that okay? Right there? Okay. I have to clarify why I'm in opposition of it. It's not because of Mayor Ellis. I consider Mayor Ellis to be a friend. Mayor Ellis is worthy of anything to be named after him in this city. I'm not a person who looks for division in people. I consider Mayor Ellis a friend. I consider Mayor Rickard a friend. ESPYs have been friends. Ms. Olson's old family friend. I look for what's good. And Mayor Ellis deserves to have something named after him in this city. The only reason I'm here against it is because I feel that, and I sent Mayor-elect Miller a text, and I told him I thought it was more or less a diversionary tactic for him to bring Otis Redding's name into the conversation. I don't know if you appreciate that or not. I'm not really concerned whether you did or not. But you don't try to divide, you try to bring people together. If you're going to name it after Otis Redding, you can't name it after Otis Redding. I was talking to Willie Perkins, who was Allman Brothers road manager. And you can encapsulate everybody by naming it. I said Legends Hall. I don't know what's wrong with Macon City Auditorium, first of all. But Legends Hall is something that where you would encapsulate Otis Redding. You'd encapsulate the Allman Brothers, both Greg and Dwayne, because a lot of people forget Dwayne, but Dwayne was a star in his own right. Also Little Richard. And have something in there for each one of those individuals to show their accomplishments. And I'm big on tourism. And I think, as I mentioned in a television interview, we're missing dollars by not capitalizing on what we have here in the city of Macon, Georgia. And what other city has Little Richard, Otis Redding, Allman Brothers? I mean, that's something we should capitalize on, and it's all housed right up there at the city auditorium. So if you change anything, Legends Hall is something that I thought about. There again, I don't see what's wrong with the city auditorium. As far as naming something after Mayor Ellis, I think a great thing is, you know, the airport. What's wrong with Ellis Field? I think, and I can hear former mayors bygone spending. I know it's a breezy day outside, maybe them spending when I make this mention, but the government center, Ellis Government Center. Those are two things you could think about. But Mayor Ellis did do a whole lot for the city as far as Bills Hill, tearing down Oglethorpe Homes, centralization of the transportation system here in the city of Macon. So something needs to be named after him. I just don't think it's the Macon City Auditorium. And I think that auditorium should be something, it's a feather in our cap as a city. And it's something that we all could capitalize on, Otis Redding, Little Richard, the Allman Brothers, to make sure that we bring tourism dollars to the city of Macon. I know you all make the right decision. I appreciate your time and your efforts always. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart. We appreciate you. Now I'm unmuted. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. We appreciate your comments, appreciate you being here. The last speaker is Tim Hooker, who is also in opposition to the resolution. Mr. Hooker, thank you for being here. We appreciate your patience, and you're recognized for up to 3 minutes, sir.
Don't be short. Sorry. I agree with this gentleman right here. He said it well. I think it should stay the Macon City Auditorium. The world knows it as the Macon City Auditorium. Just makes sense. If you dead set on adding a name to it, Sergeant Rodney Davis, United States Marine Corps, Medal of Honor. He gave his all. Samuel Augustus Nunn, known as a senator from here. Peyton Anderson, which has given millions to this community. But other group from the arts is Otis Redding, Allman Brothers, Chuck Lavelle, Little Richard, Kerry Preston, Jason Aldean. My favorite is to leave it as the Macon Auditorium. So that's all I really got to say.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and appreciate your brevity. Mr. Hooker, thank you. I appreciate your comments and appreciate your brevity. And we thank you.
One more thing is, if you guys want to name something for the mayor, that's fine. But I think I should stay as Macon City Auditorium.
Very, very good, sir.
Yeah.
That's all the speakers that signed up to talk to us about the naming of the city auditorium. So with that, we will adjourn this public hearing. And thank you very much. For those of you who are wanting to stay online, just stand by. We'll have a brief recess and we'll begin pre-commission at 5 o'clock. So tune back in or just stay online and we'll begin our Zoom meeting and pre-commission at 5. Thank you very much.
Hey, Erin, this is Sarah with Making Bib IT. Sorry about the delay. I just wanted to make sure you're supposed to be in today.
Okay, just for them to, that's fine. We're
Hey y'all, this is Rachel Gamble with Macon Bibb County Public Affairs. Just letting you know we are still streaming live on Facebook. We just have a graphic up letting people know that the next meeting is our pre-commission meeting, which will begin at 5 o'clock, about 7 minutes. Our full commission meeting will follow that at 6 p.m. If you know people who don't have Facebook or don't use Facebook, let them know they can access this meeting at maconbib.us. Hey everyone, Rachel Gamble here again with Macon-Bibb County Public Affairs. Just letting y'all know that we are still streaming live to Facebook and maconbib.us. And we will be starting our meeting here in just a couple minutes, pre-commission first, and then the full commission meeting at 6 o'clock after that. Again, you can watch on Facebook, or let people know who don't have Facebook, they can watch at maconbib.us. Thanks.
Rachel, it's Spencer. Can you give me a mic check, please?
Absolutely. This
Thank
is
you.
Rachel with Public Affairs. We'll be getting started here in just a couple minutes. Hey everyone, Rachel Gamble here again with Macon Bibb Public Affairs. Just letting y'all know we're about to get started with our pre-commission meeting. We are still live streaming to Facebook and maconbib.us. So to everyone in the meeting, we're about to get started. If you're watching online, we're about to get started. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a minute or two after 5 o'clock. So let me call to order this pre-commission meeting of the Macon-Bibb County Commission for Tuesday, November the 17th. We are continuing under our same Zoom protocol. And out of an abundance of caution, the Macon-Bibb County Commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 17th at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock respectively will be available to the Macon-Bibb County Commissioners by video conference. The commission chambers are closed to the public and press in order to slow the spread of COVID-19. Therefore, the public and press may only access the meeting simultaneously online at www.maconbib.us or www.facebook.com/Macon-Bibb County. With that having been said, we have a couple of amendments that we need to make to the agenda for our pre-commission meeting. I am advised that we need to add an amendment to the pay scale. It's a very small, minor amendment, but still one that we're trying to get plugged in. So I need to add that to the pre-commission agenda so that we can hear about the pay scale. Can I get a motion to add the pay scale amendment to our pre-commission?
So moved.
Got a motion by Allen, second by Schlesinger. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of adding that to our pre-commission agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and we'll add that as item 6 before we go to executive session. Let me start this meeting by confirming a quorum so I don't forget to do that later. And I'll do that by calling on the clerk to call the roll. And I will say this is probably an appropriate time to say Commissioner Shepard is not on the line with us, but has requested permission to call in, to use one of his times to call in so that he can vote on a couple of items during the regular commission meeting. He will not be calling in to the pre-commission meeting. I understand he is still hospitalized at this point, and we wish him well, but we'll be calling him during the regular meeting and getting him online at some appropriate point there. But in the meantime, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please, and so we can confirm who's here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Tillman. If y'all would please unmute.
He's here. I see him.
He's not unmuted.
There you
Commissioner,
go. I'm here. I'm sorry.
there, that's okay. Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Bivens,
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Yeah, Commissioner Jones is driving to his home, so he'll probably be in a few minutes. Commissioner Lucas.
Here.
Commissioner Schlesinger.
Here.
Commissioner Watkins.
Here.
Commissioner Wynn. And she's the same thing. She's driving home, so she'll join us in a few minutes.
But that gives us Tillman, Allen, Bivens, Lucas, Schlesinger, and Watkins, and me. So you got 7
Yes, sir.
out of 10, and
Got
that's a
six,
quorum.
Mr.
Six is a quorum, and Scotty Shepard will be joining us during the regular meeting. So let me call let me make this announcement. I think everybody was on the line, on the call for our public hearings that we held this afternoon, 3 o'clock for the non-discrimination ordinance, and at 4 o'clock for the naming of the auditorium, city auditorium for Mayor Ellis. In addition to that, the clerk has done an outstanding job of collecting and accumulating emails that were sent in to us over the past week or so, but especially here in the last 72 hours. And she has got those printed out for you to look at your convenience. But in the meantime, she's counted them. And on the ordinance, the non-discrimination ordinance, there were 47 separate emails that were sent in favor of the ordinance. There were 430 separate emails that were sent in opposed to the civil rights ordinance or the non-discrimination ordinance. And they stopped printing them at that point and just counted an additional 230 emails that came in but were not printed. So there are 430 emails that are printed in opposition to the non-discrimination ordinance, plus those that just came in. As far as the naming, there were 4 emails received in favor of naming the auditorium for former Mayor Ellis. There were 102 opposed to it. So if you want to see any of those, the clerk has them in her office. You're more than welcome to come look, review, read to your little heart's content. If you were not one of the commissioners that actually received them directly as well, because I know a lot of you commissioners were on the emails that I saw. With that having been said, however, we want to go now to understand the governor has issued another executive order controlling the conduct during the state of emergency. So Michael, why don't you start by saying what is the end of the current state of emergency, and then what is this new executive order and when is it effective?
Mr. Mayor, before we do that.
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem?
Before we do that, can I do something, please? Let me just recognize and appreciate Commissioner Lucas for even being on this Zoom call. Senator Lucas suffered COVID, and more recently, publicly, Commissioner Lucas shared that she too has COVID, which she didn't have to share publicly. And so we hope you're feeling better. We know you're in quarantine, so thank you for even taking time out to be on this call and in trying to, deal with all of that. So I just wanted to say that.
Well said, Mayor Pro Tem. Well said, Mayor Pro Tem. Well said. Thank you. Thank you very much for calling that to our attention. And Commissioner Lucas, do know that we have you in our thoughts and prayers, as well as Senator Lucas.
Thank you.
With that having been said, Michael, let me call on you to kind of give us an update on the state of emergency and on this latest executive order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the public health emergency declared by the governor is currently set to run through December 9th. The new order that the governor issued on Friday for just general operations in the state of Georgia took effect on November 15th and will continue through the end of the month of November. The last day of November, November 30th, is on a Monday. And I would anticipate then both another 2-week order and if the numbers continue to climb, probably a further extension of the state of emergency to both be issued right around November 30th. I did a detailed comparison of the new governor's order with the last governor's order. And other than the date being extended out an additional 2 weeks, I saw no substantive changes at all between the two orders. So basically, we're all operating under the same rules that we have been. For the last 2 weeks, we'll continue through the end of November. And I would expect that I'll have another update at the next commission meeting on December 1st then, both as to the state of emergency end date and as to any changes for the first 2 weeks of December. Thank you, Mayor.
Good. Thank you, Michael. Any questions from a commissioner of Michael about the state of emergency or the governor's executive order? I will say that since the state of emergency has been extended, since the state of emergency extends through December the 9th, it is my intention to continue to conduct our meetings for the rest of December, for the rest of November and into December by Zoom. We've got a couple of commissioners that really need to have these meetings Zoomed rather than them trying to be here in person and present. So I'm going to make the decision to continue our Zoom meetings at least until and through December the 9th. So you can plan on that. Next is an update on COVID. It's a pretty good segue. So I'll call on Spencer Hawkins at this point in time to kind of give us an update on where we are as far as our numbers here locally in the North Central Health District are concerned. Spencer, are you there?
Sir. What we're seeing now is just like a lot of other areas, we're seeing our numbers rise. Most recently, we're still hovering for the last week or so between that 15 and 19 7-day case moving average. Like I said, the good thing is that we're not going up, but we're also not going down. We're 2 weeks out from Halloween, and so we are seeing, and we did see a rise from Halloween and those Halloween numbers. And so our big message now is let's get ready for Thanksgiving. We're going to be sending out some information on our social media pages, websites, things like that. We're going to send them to Janice Ross to send out to all the commissioners as well about how you can have a safe Thanksgiving. We're not saying cancel Thanksgiving. We're not saying anything like that, but we just need to take some extra precautions on how you and your family can stay safe while still celebrating the holiday. It is extremely, extremely important that we continue our vigilance. Like the mayor's off to say, we can't take our foot off the gas right now. We must continue to wear masks wherever we are in groups of people. If you're sitting in your office by yourself, then please, you don't need to wear a mask. If you're sitting in your car by yourself, you don't need to wear a mask. When you go into the grocery store to go shopping, wear a mask. When you walk into your office mate's cubicle, wear a mask. These are important factors. CDC, World Health Organization, continue to say the regular use of wearing a mask would dramatically drop our numbers as it relates to COVID. The other thing is, oh, yes, sir. Oh, okay. Would dramatically reduce our rates for numbers. The other thing that we're watching is the rates of hospitalizations. Right now, for our 3 hospitals, and we're in contact with them every single day, our 3 hospitals are doing quite well. They're managing their patients. They're not completely full. They're not at capacity, but they're getting very close. One of the things that we are seeing is that hospitals in our more urban areas, the metro Atlanta area, are getting overwhelmed. And what happened over in the summer when we saw our peak in the summer was major urban areas got hit first, then the smaller urban areas got hit next. And so what we're trying to do is get that word out that you need to wear a mask. You need to socially distance. Please stay away from mass gatherings as much as possible, and then continue to share this information. Like I said, we're going to send that out here shortly, but once again, wear a mask, socially distance. Our numbers are going up. We need them to go down.
Very good, Spencer. Thank you very much. Questions of Spencer from any commissioner? If not, let me make note. I think I see that Commissioner Wynn has signed on now. Commissioner Wynn, can you give us a verbal present, please, so we can count you? Okay, but she has signed on now, so she's home and signed on and will be part of the meeting going forward from this point.
Mallory there too, Mayor.
Mr.
Oh,
Jones is
good.
here too.
Okay, very good. All right, so now we got Commissioner Jones. So everybody here now except Commissioner Shepherd. So let me go, if you'll permit me, to the consent agenda and then new business, because then we've got an executive sessions and it always takes us a little bit of time to come back out of executive session and get back to live streaming. So if you'll permit me, let me jump over the review of tonight's commission meeting agenda and go to the next item on our pre-commission, which is the consent agenda. There is only one alcohol beverage license. It is a change of ownership for an existing convenience store with fuel sales and alcohol to go already. The only thing is they got a change of ownership now. It's for beer and wine package sales to go. This is for HMS Foods LLC, doing business as HMS Foods LLC, located at 2840 Riverside Drive. Again, it is accompanied by the sheriff's certificate of a background check for the applicant, the planning and zoning, the alcohol beverage license, business development services certification, that the fees have been paid for beer and wine package sales to go, planning and zoning compliance, and the engineer's measurement form, as well as the ad in the paper. So this is for beer and wine package sales to go, 2840 Riverside Drive. Can I get a motion to put that on tonight's consent agenda by Schlesinger? Second.
Second.
By Allen. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of putting that on the consent agenda for tonight's meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and we'll have that one item on the consent agenda. We got one piece of new business that's I think non-controversial. We had a presentation by Newtown, we had a presentation by Newtown Macon about the contribution of funds from the BID, the Downtown Business Improvement District, and a grant from the Peyton Anderson Foundation, I think in the amount of $25,000 to fund improvements to the Poplar Street Commons between 2nd and 3rd Street there in front of Newtown. I think Aaron Keller is on the line here with us tonight, and legal has prepared a resolution that I'll ask Michael or Duke, one or the other, to kind of walk through with us, just to kind of formalize what we said we were going to do at the committee meeting, which was to have a resolution to officially accept this contribution and let them do the work under the supervision of Parks and Beautification. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a resolution to accept installation and acceptance of improvements to Prince Park as part of the Poplar Street Commons project. The whereas provisions spell out that Newtown and the Downtown BID have received grant funding, so this is all done with no public expense. The second provision, I did some research on the name of that block. It's called Prince Park. It's named after Oliver H. Prince, who was, among other things, one of the original commissioners of Bibb County and a United States Senator. And so there's some information about Mr. Prince. The third paragraph references the plans that were presented last week that Mayor just discussed. The fourth paragraph I want to highlight for everybody. It says the installation work will be from the Downtown Business Improvement District in Newtown Macon. That was a typographical error. Instead of Newtown Macon, that should be the Peyton Anderson Foundation. And I've submitted to Janice a correction, just revising that one item of this document. And then now therefore be it resolved that the commission accepts the donation and installation of the improvements as detailed in the exhibit located in Prince Park, that those improvements will be installed under the supervision of and subject to the approval of the Parks Director or any other county departments as are deemed necessary. The remaining provisions are our standard language that we put in all of the ordinances. And then I want to go to the exhibit which is the diagram of Prince Park, the remodel that was, that Ms. Keller showed last week. Mr. Mayor, I'd be glad to answer questions, but that I think sums it up.
Good, thank you. Aaron, anything you wanted to add?
No, sir. Not unless somebody else has a question, but I don't have anything.
Okay, anybody have a question of Michael or Aaron about the improvements to Poplar Street Park between 2nd and 3rd, known officially as Prince Park?
Prince Park.
I've learned,
Yes,
I've
sir.
learned something there. I didn't know it Prince Park, but there it is. Any other questions? If not, can I get a motion?
I have a question.
Oh, good. Commissioner Bivens. Yes, sir.
You mentioned something about a grant, and what effort was made to come up with this grant?
Aaron, I'm gonna have to ask you that because I think that was Newtown that was trying to supplement what the BID, the Business Improvement District, felt comfortable in coming up with and the estimate of cost. But Aaron?
Actually, Karen Lambert with the Peyton Anderson Foundation was just looking for a project, and we made a proposal, and she and her board accepted it. So they kind of just, it was a project that they were interested in, but initially that was not the intent. She just asked Josh for to take proposals for certain things to do with this money.
Okay. Commissioner Bivens, does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, that answers the question. I'll probably vote against this because it's part of that pattern where certain things get done and certain things get neglected.
Thank you, Commissioner Bivens. Is there further discussion? If not, can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
By
Second.
Schlesinger and second by Allen. So got a motion and second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Commissioner Bivens got one no. So the ayes have it, and that'll be on our agenda for action at the 6 o'clock meeting. Next, we have the item that we added, the pay scale amendment. And let me call on Dr. Moffitt to kind of tell us what we're doing there.
Yes, good evening, commissioners. When we talked about the pay scale at the committee meeting, I informed you that I needed to complete the conversation with the clerk of Superior Court and the tax commissioner. We have completed those conversations, and those adjustments have been included into the document. And there were two directors that I needed to just change the grade on. So those are the only changes in the document. Aside of that, the two directors that will move to grade 229 that were just inappropriate in a place, and the changes that the clerk of Superior Court wanted. She's satisfied with those changes, and they were merely just making sure that all her positions were classified the same. Example, a real estate clerk 1 would be the same as a civil clerk 1. Making sure that she has like 5 categories, and they were making sure that everybody was in the appropriate grade. So she's satisfied with that, and that's the changes in the document. Again, thank you for your consideration.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Watkins. Motion by Schlesinger, second by Watkins to approve the amendment. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the tax commissioner's office. I think we kind of brought it up at last week's meeting that there were some concerns within that department, that there were some folks who had been there a while in certain positions that had actually trained some people who had come in after them, but their salaries were the same. Did you run across any kind of discrepancies like that, or was this dealing with it at all?
Well, we have that throughout the government, and that's the longevity piece that we'll be addressing in an upcoming budget. But we have looked at that, and again, those that are not getting an adjustment to the minimum will be getting a 1.5%. So there will be just a small separation there, but we do know that is a problem, not just in the tax commission, but throughout the whole government. So that's the very next thing that we're going to start working on, starting in February when we start looking at the new budget.
Okay, I think with tax commissioner's office, some folks have felt so strongly that they were at a disadvantage as far as pay, that they have sought legal action on it. So I'd surely like for us to revisit that, because there's nothing worse than to have somebody to come in who happens to be maybe a friend of the boss, and then you train the person who comes in, and then that person makes the same salary, ends up making the same salary that you're making.
Understood.
So you've got that problem in the tax commissioner's office.
So
Yes,
I just want,
Mr. Watkins?
yeah, and I just want to definitely, I think we noticed the one in the tax commissioner's office because they've been vocal about it. But as Dr. Moffitt was saying, as presented, this isn't addressing the longevity issue at all. Like if the bottom of the scale is 26,000, that means that everyone in that, no matter if they worked a day or 30 years, would be at 26,000 based on it. And that's very common throughout this. That's one of the points we were trying to make during the last the last committee meeting, that we haven't addressed that yet. I think right now what Dr. Moffitt is saying is that he want to not address that in this pay scale implementation, but present that as part of the fiscal year 2021 budget changes possibly, if I'm understanding correctly.
I think that's exactly right, Dr. Moffitt. Does that fairly state your position?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think
As long
get
as
the pay,
we deal with it.
right. That's
As
right.
long as
That'll-
we deal with it.
Right. So put the pay scale in place and then deal with the longevity issue and see what y'all can come up with there. But this is the pay scale and the amendment to the pay scale. Did I got a motion and second? Did I take a vote yet? All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the amended pay plan will be on the action item for main meeting tonight. That takes us to executive session, which is a discussion or deliberation on the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or rating of a county officer or employee. All in favor of going into executive session for that purpose?
Mr. Mayor, is this the executive session?
Well, we're going to
discuss-
talking about an appointment by me in confirmation as a department director.
Okay, is this the vehicle maintenance?
It is.
Okay, I think I was requesting the executive session. I don't feel the need of having any more executive sessions as long as we have folks who are not sworn in yet out in those executive sessions. I do not feel it's appropriate. When we had one previously, we had our fire chief sitting up in a meeting trying to defend himself against an employee with folks who were not sworn in, sitting in there, developing attitudes toward the fire chief. And I don't think that that was appropriate. And
Well,
I'm not going to request an executive session as long
Right.
as we're doing it that way. So.
Well, there was a request made. I've put it on the agenda now. So all in favor of going into executive session for the purpose stated would signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no.
No.
Oh.
Got two no's, Bivens and Lucas, but the ayes have it. And we are going into executive session, and also decision of the chair would be to include Mayor-elect, Commissioner-elect Howell, Commissioner-elect Wilder, who are both on the phone, as well as my nominee for the position. He would be included in the executive session. Everybody else, Rachel, would you explain to them how they're going to be put in the waiting room, and we'll be back as quickly as we can?
Yes, sir. So for the duration of the executive session, anyone who is not county attorney, elected official, or commissioner-elect will go into the waiting room of this meeting. We're going to stop our live stream to Facebook and the website, and then we'll start it back up once the executive session is complete.
And that
So
should
I-
not be long. We hope to be on time for our 6 o'clock start of our
And-
regular meeting.
Everyone who is currently in this meeting is permitted to be there by the rules that you stated. So I'll stop our live stream right now.